Hey guys, welcome back to Sassy Stuff. We're here to talk to you all things week 9 in college football. Let's get started. Let's talk about this Texas A&M and LSU game. Texas A&M came out on top 38-23. This is a huge game for who would be going to the SEC championship later in the year. Texas A&M was sitting number 1 in the SEC with LSU right behind them. Texas A&M still at the top, and LSU has moved way down. Georgia and Texas have the next 2 spots in that lineup. So this is what it's looking like moving forward to see who's going to go to the SEC championship. Texas A&M, if they can beat Texas, then they're in. And I think Georgia, they've kind of sealed their spot with the rest of their schedule.
Yeah, I think those top three are obviously like the big dogs in the SEC. This is kind of not a surprise to me at all. I thought that Bama was going to be in that mix at some point this year, but I will say between Texas A&M, Texas and Georgia, those are our super teams. Those are what make the entire SEC as powerful as they are, and I'm actually grateful as an entire conference that we have those three teams, and they are just killing it this year.
Oh, absolutely. And the cool thing about Texas A&M in this game was how they were able to make adjustments within the game. So Mike Elko obviously swapped out Connor Weigman for their backup Marcel Reed. This is not the first time this has happened this year. And in that third quarter, Reed didn't just come in to fill in a role. He sprinted, he scrambled, he snuck his way into 3 touchdowns. The Aggies found their spark with Reed. And moving forward, maybe that's your guy. But they've kind of been able to get away with flip-flopping with these QBs. So it's really going to be interesting moving forward who is that starter for them next week. But LSU's Garrett Nussmeier, he did finish with 405 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, but he did throw 3 interceptions. So it was not his best game. And LSU's special teams missed 3 field goals. So there were lots of points left on the field for LSU. Kelly talked about how his offense was completely off balance, which contributed to the loss this week.
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of weak offenses this week for sure. I mean, obviously, here in a little bit, you guys are going to see me chat with Joshua Morrow, but we talked a lot about how OU also had some issues on their offensive side. I think even Texas has been struggling with their offense in the last couple weeks. I'm not really sure what's going on with most of these teams' O lines, but they definitely are struggling. And maybe we're in week 9. Maybe everybody's a little tired. Everybody's already had their bye week. I'm not really sure where everybody's at, but I think they're definitely struggling, these offensive lines.
They have been across the board. But the defense started really strong for Kelly, but they had absolutely no answers for Reed. They just couldn't handle the running quarterback, which is not a good sign moving forward for them. They have their bye week, but then they're going to be playing Alabama. And I know Alabama's offense has been a little shaky, but after this past week, they have found their stride. It seems like it. They've gotten a little bit more comfortable, and they have Jalen Milrow, who is that dynamic running quarterback. And if they could not handle Marcel Reed, I don't know how they're going to handle Jalen Milrow. I don't know how they're going to be stopping this run. I mean, they had 3 interceptions, only 24 rushing yards. LSU didn't exactly present anything on their offense in this game. So there was just a lack of diversity with their playbook. So they struggled. Kelly seems optimistic to clean things up. I think they'll need a deep clean here because this is just not going to work for them moving forward in SEC play, moving forward if they want to get to those playoffs. But now the Aggies are undefeated in SEC play. They have that perfect 5-0 record. When Reed came in, he gave the team and the fans the lifeline, the notch up to get the job done. They have an impressive 242 rushing yards to LSU's measly 24. So Texas A&M really showed out here, and they looked great in their blackout uniforms.
Yeah, they definitely looked amazing. I'm really impressed actually. I think Texas A&M is just like pulling strong. I mean, just Texas football in general. It doesn't matter high school, college. It normally comes out on top. So I'm really excited at least one Texas team is doing better than the other.
Well, it's going to be really fun to have this Texas A&M matchup, especially now that they're both in the SEC. So with both of them, I know Texas has struggled the past couple of weeks, but they're still an incredible team. But with A&M really finding their stride, I think that rivalry game is going to be a must watch across the board.
I think it's going to be a must watch too, just because obviously Texas is coming off of, their loss from Georgia, and then they came back and they barely beat Vandy. Let's just, for just half a second, like, how is that even a thing? I'm sure, you are as experienced as I am with, those close calls with Vandy, especially being from Bama. But I just, it is amazing to me how they were going so strong throughout each of these. And I think that Georgia game really shook them up. So I'm interested to see how they pull out with A&M.
Well, while we're talking about the Texas Longhorns, let's talk about that performance against the Vanderbilt Commodores. How did you feel in this one?
Whew, that should not have been that close. But I think, you know what? I want to give a lot of props to Vandy because Vanderbilt has consistently been the underdog this year. It has been, you and I were kind of chatting about this the other day. They've been really sneaky about this. It's, they didn't have a great first few games, and then they came out of the woodwork with Bama. And I don't really know if that was because Bama came in a little bit too prideful, thinking that it was going to be a washout, or if Vanderbilt just came out of nowhere and was like just the dogs in that. Yeah, but kind of with Texas, I think Texas is coming off very shaky from that last loss to Georgia. They were undefeated, lost to Georgia, then they're coming off that. And they also have some injuries on the team. So I think there's just been a lot happening on the Texas Longhorns right now, just for them, especially mid-season like this. This is kind of always where Texas traditionally starts to decline a little bit. So I'm hoping that they rally through this one. I hope that the Texas A&M game is a really good one for them. Vanderbilt just came in a little bit stronger than I think everybody expected.
Well, to me, you saw what they were able to do against Bama. You saw what they were able to do against Kentucky. These are bigger teams in the SEC. And so I think that Texas should have been ready for it. I think they should have known exactly what they were going up against, and I just don't think they were able to deliver as efficiently as they wanted to. I know Quinn Ewers was very shaky against Georgia. He did get hit a lot, but he had an interception on his first throw. But after that, he did complete 17 consecutive passes. He finished with 288 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he still seemed off in his footwork and his pocket presence. It's just not the Michigan game Quinn Ewers that we saw early this year. It is progress from last week. And
Mhm.
going back to Texas's O line, it's just there's holding penalties. They allow 4 sacks, drive killing mistakes. They just seem to kill the momentum for this Texas team, and you can't do that because Texas is all about keeping the pace up and catching these teams off their toes. Or if you're like stop start, you're not going to be able to create that momentum that you need for this offense, which is normally like high octane and everything and so dynamic to watch. But it just kept stalling.
It even goes back to the Red River rivalry with the fact that the very first play Quinn Ewers was sacked. We go back to that, and it's like ever since then, it's just been so shaky, and I don't really know. I don't understand what's going on. Obviously, they came out on top with that game. Coming into the Georgia game, it just was. I mean, they could not get the ball out there. And I just want to shout out because I wasn't on last week's episode. I want to shout out Arch Manning. I think that this kid has such a bright future. He is obviously a legacy. I'm a huge fan of his. I also love Quinn Ewers. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the SEC right now. You cannot be a talented quarterback and get the ball down the field if you don't have a good O line. So, considering obviously, like you said, they've been allowing sack after sack or interceptions or fumbles, like it's not been a good ride for their O line, and I'm really hoping that they get it together, especially in time for the Texas A&M game. And I would love to see Arch Manning on the field more. I think he has really pulled his weight, especially as a freshman. I mean, it's his rookie year. This is insane that he's getting playing time, and he's not choking. There's no choking when he steps on the field. He throws that ball, and it is amazing.
This offense is incredible when everything is working, and it starts at that O line. They really need to protect the quarterback, whether it's yours or Manning. They need time to find these players downfield because Texas has amazing playmakers. I mean, DeAndre Moore Jr. They can break tackles. They can gain extra large. I know fans criticize constant screen passing, saying it's not dynamic enough across the board. But it's like when you guys who can zoom down the field, why not? So
Yeah,
Texas has everything they need to win the SEC championship, to win the national championship. But for some reason, it's just not coming together right now like it was early this year, and it might be because it's October, people are banged up, it's been a long ride
Mhm.
to get here and people get tired, but you have to come together when it means most, and November is when it means most. That's what's going to decide your fate moving into the playoffs. So if you continue playing these close games, if you continue making these um, detrimental mistakes, then you might find yourself not there. I don't think that will happen, but you drop the Texas A&M game, you drop one more game outside of that just from having a bad day, you're out. And you could have dropped this game and then it would be one more loss and you're done. So I
Yeah.
think they have a lot to work on, but they have everything they need to be successful.
They are a super packed team. Like, let's be honest. First, second, and third strings, they have some of the best talent in the SEC. Like, they are super well stacked here. And it's so frustrating when you don't see that on the field. It's very frustrating when you know the numbers and the fact that they have one of the best talented teams in the SEC and they're just not using it. They're not, it's like they've been given every tool and they're just not using them.
Well, we're hoping they can because when they're great, they are absolutely incredible to watch. So I think Sark's going to be able to turn it around. I think he's going to settle his team down, be like, "This is our goal, and we're going to achieve it." And I think they absolutely can. So welcome to the SEC. It's not easy, but you're doing great. You're doing better than OU is right now.
Amen to that.
And finally, let's talk about the Crimson Tide turning the tide against Missouri this week. I mean, to me, this was the bounce back game they needed. This was the confidence booster game they needed. I understand Missouri might not have had their full strength to give to Alabama, but when this team has been struggling for 3 weeks now, this is the get right game they needed on offense and defense. Milrow last week, he had a tough time against Tennessee. He threw for 239 yards, two interceptions. Critics were so harsh on him, but he rebounded this week. He really found his stride. I mean, he's still missing passes, but he remembered he had legs. He was able to run at times. I think, especially in that second half, him and the rest of the offense really came alive. And they had a sturdy O line. Milrow found Jermaine Bernard for 5 receptions. He scrambled when the gaps were open. I think this offense was really finding itself again. And I don't know. I mean, looking at it now, 3 weeks down the line, they had that amazing win against Georgia, and then they go into Vanderbilt and get they lose. They lose. And the ego was gone. They were like, "What just happened to us? We're Alabama. We should not have let that happen." Everyone in the world was like, "What happened? You're Alabama. You should not have let that happen." And they did. I think that killed their confidence. I think they kind of lost who they were. And this game, again, I know Mizzou is not at full strength, but they kind of found themselves again, especially towards the end. And that defense, the defense who we have been fighting to give us some like shining glory for weeks now. They found their stride after weeks of struggling on third downs. Their defense clamped down, holding Mizzou to just 3 out of 13 conversion. That's huge. They held Mizzou to 3.8 yards per play. They were able to shut them out. I know Kane Womack put his starters back on when Mizzou was 1 yard away from the goal line, and they were able to shut them out. I mean, these are the huge moments that Bama really needed to get that reset, to get that recharge moving forward. I think this is just going to build their confidence up. There's also a beautiful moment from Jalen Milrow after Kane Womack was able to stop that play with his defensive plan. He went up to him, gave him a hug, and was like, "That was amazing. That is everything you've been working for, and that you've been wanting to get out of this defense. You did it." And it was a beautiful moment from the offensive quarterback and the defensive coordinator. I thought it just showed how much Milrow truly does care about this team from top to bottom, how much he wants this team to succeed at every single level, and how he knows that they have the talent to get it done. They're still on the edge here. There's still so much they have to accomplish in order to make it to the playoffs. But after this week, if they can build off the confidence that they got, I think they can achieve it. I really, really do. This kind of settled them back into what they can be and what they should be.
And I think too, I mean, we've kind of hit on this a little bit already, but this is the point in the season where teams do get a little shaky. We're coming up on some really stressful times. Like you just said, November is kind of a make it or break it month for every team in the SEC. And I think Bama obviously had to get, their stride going. They have a new coach. There's just like, they're dealing with freshmen, they're dealing with transfer portal. There's so much going on that team. And I think it took them a while to get their groove going. I think that loss to Vandy was such a punch in the gut to them. It's taken them some time to kind of rebound and regain that same momentum that they had. They were doing fine. I mean, it's always been kind of like hit or miss, but there were a few consecutive weeks there, week 4, 5, 6, and 7 that I felt like they were, yeah, they were getting it. It's been a little rough for Bama, and I'm just going to give all of the grace to them just because they're dealing with a lot of newness. It's all new. It's like new coach, new players, new teammates, new staff members. I mean, they're just finding their footing. And I think this might just be the start of it. I really do feel like maybe they just needed this win to bounce back, come off of their little, punch in the gut. They're catching their breath. They're good now. I actually have great feelings and favors for Bama in the coming weeks.
Well, one thing that Nick Saban talked about on game day is that Kalen DeBoer implemented a new mindset for them. TNT takes no talent, meaning it takes no talent to make these silly mistakes that cost you the game. And so doing the little things right to be successful, because I mean, this team is stacked with 4 and 5 stars. This team can make these incredibly explosive plays, but they have just been doing the little things wrong every single week, multiple times throughout the game, and that's really what's made them struggle. So this TNT, it seemed like it worked this week. We'll see if Kalen DeBoer is able to rally his team and continue with this mindset of just playing each play and not worrying about what just happened and worrying about the next. Kalen even got a little bit heated. I think that's what Bama fans were wanting to see. He was screaming at one of his players. He was screaming at the referees. And I know coaches don't all have to be the same. He does not have to be Nick Saban, but seeing that fire in him when we were like, we know you're a much like calmer coach. You're a much more player oriented coach, but seeing that fire from him, I think it ignited something in Bama fans as well, being like, okay, this is our guy, whether we're successful this year or not. Um, he's our guy moving forward. He knows what he's doing. It's just going to take him time, like you said. So I think this was a great win for Alabama, not just the game, but for their confidence. So moving forward, they have that bye week. Then they play LSU. We'll preview that one, I'm sure, a lot because that is a big game with huge implications for the playoffs for both teams now. So I'm excited to see what's moving forward.
Oh, I think that's going to be like one of the games of the year for the SEC for sure. I mean, that's something I am currently looking forward to.
And it's in Death Valley. You can't beat it.
Guys, today I'm here with Joshua Morrow, a longtime OU fan. Him and I are going to be rivals on this show today, but we are excited to talk about the game that just happened against Ole Miss. We're here live in the flesh. Josh, what happened for your team during this game?
You said, look at that smile that you have while wearing that cat puke colored orange shirt. It just mocking me. This is painful. The smile on your face, just watching me suffer is amazing, Molly.
I was rooting for you today, though. I did have you favored. You were actually in my betting log.
Really? Well, we
Yeah.
did cover. Did you take the points?
I did. I did. I still took the points. I just unfortunately, didn't take it all home today.
Yeah. We're not a good football team. That's the bottom line. We have too many problems that are definitely not going to solve themselves this year. I Ole Miss is a very solid football team. I never even thought, even though we were winning at halftime, I never thought for a second that we could really truly beat that team at their place. So, not a surprise. I've been watching it all year. Our offensive ineptitude is truly staggering. I mean, this is Oklahoma. We are an offensive team. We have been that way since I came out of the womb. This is not some terrible Big Ten low level team. And we can't score. We can't move the ball. We can't block. We can't do anything. Yeah.
Do you feel like since them joining the SEC this year, which I thought was well deserved, even as a Texas fan, I thought that they should be a part of the SEC. Do you feel like that has kind of interrupted their, let's say, flow of the team? Do you feel like that is kind of in their head a little bit mentally, or do you feel like this is more of just an OU problem and not so much of a division problem?
I don't believe it is an SEC problem. Now, I believe the numbers. Give me a ranking here or there, but I think OU had like the fourth hardest schedule in Division One this year. But this is what we asked for. Um, but if this current team, this iteration of what the Sooners are was playing in the Big 12, the results would be similar. They're not doing anything effectively well. Their defense is, performing at a very high level, but it's not complementary football. We're one-sided. The defense can't do it all. I mean, they get worn down by the end of the game because everything's three and out, three and out. Get the ball right back. Defense is back on. So I I don't think it's an SEC thing. I really just think that from an organization standpoint, we are really struggling. I believe they have got good enough players, except for the O line. The O line is truly a disaster right now. And our top five receivers. Imagine any team in the country playing without their top five receivers, and that's what OU is doing. It's mind blowing. They've got walk-ons, they've got true freshmen. Everybody's playing. It's unbelievable. So
Mhm.
I don't want to make excuses. They're just a bad football team right now, and I don't think it's a product of being in the SEC. The schedule's been tough, but we are truly not playing at a good level. I mean, even their first few games, they played Temple and Houston, teams that are truly, truly bad at football, and OU barely beat them. So I don't know. It's not their year. It just
Yeah,
isn't.
I think too, like you were just saying, which I said during the Red River rivalry, was that Texas had a great game that day. However, they were playing up against their sixth, seventh, eighth strings. Like they weren't playing up against their first string players, especially on the O line. But today's game against Ole Miss, I felt like the defense in the first two quarters was killing it. I mean, they were stopping the ball at all costs. But like you said, when you're consistent on your defense side and there's no offense and you're not scoring and you're turning over the ball, you're fumbling the ball, you're not on top of it, your defense is obviously tired, they're defeated, they're competing for what? For their offense to not score at all. So it's kind of, this game was such a tragedy just in that sense that the defense, I did feel like, had a good first half. In the second half, I think they were worn down and beaten by Ole Miss.
They've carried this football team. They've played admirably. I mean, I have nothing but respect for guys like Danny Stutzman and Bowman and Dominic Williams, all our defensive leaders. The number of snaps they're actually on the field during each game it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, and it's just not fair to them. I feel terrible for guys like Stutzman and Bowman who came back for this, because if you would have told them, that we would be this bad on offense and become simply a one-sided football team, they never would have come back. I mean, we had high hopes. And to your point earlier, I would have liked to have played Texas with all our guys. If we had any of those playmakers, and I mean any of them, it's different. Deion Burks is almost an unguardable slot receiver. He would be an incredible addition right now. Losing Jaden Gibson before the season started was truly awful. I mean, that kid was going to have a huge year. But at the end of the day, we can't pass protect. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, the OU Sooners have given up, um, I think, 17 sacks in the last two games. Imagine an offensive coordinator having to do that. Now, Seth Luttrell was fired last week, which a move had to be made. I get it. But I don't know what anybody expects if we can't keep the quarterback off the ground. I just don't know.
No, and I mean, your quarterback, I actually said this during the Texas game. he's a freshman. I mean, this is his rookie year. He's obviously a legacy. His dad or grandfather played for OU, is what I was reading, or both. They're obviously huge Sooners. However, he's a freshman. This is his first year. He's kind of being thrown into the battle with it, especially coming onto a team that he's not working with his first line. Like he's working with the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth line. I mean, it's kind of crazy what he's working with. But you could tell, even in the Texas game, he's actually a good quarterback. And I think he has a really bright future. But like you said, he can't have a bright future and he can't be an actually good quarterback if he's consistently on the ground over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to perform well in any level. It doesn't matter if it's pee wee football, NFL, whatever. If you're getting murdered in the trenches, it's ball game. It's ball
Mm-hmm.
game, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been OU's problem in the past is, really like not having with, big enough bodies, which I don't think is a problem now. We've got some big dudes there. We're just, man, pass protection is just, I mean, atrocious, like world class bad right now. It's hard to even be positive about it because I'm just praying. I mean, what quarterback would want to play behind a line that is that leaky? I don't know. It's rough, Molly. It's rough.
I I honestly, after Texas won that day, obviously I was really happy, but I did feel, because you could tell like there were key players on the team that are genuinely so good, and I think they've got really bright futures in professional football. But it's just like you said, it's hard to get behind a team that is just not consistent. And especially coming off, they had a decent year last year.
Yep.
Coming off a pretty good year to like coming in with a true freshman, and then also dealing with all of the injuries, the transfer portals open. Like there's just so much going on for Oklahoma that it wouldn't shock me if some big changes were made in this next season. Maybe some new coaches, maybe some new players, possibly more transfers is what I'm assuming is going to happen. But on a lighter note, considering you've been a Sooner fan your entire life, you were born and raised in Oklahoma, is there a tradition that you guys do as a Sooner when you win or lose that you would like to share?
I've got one. Here, I'll show you.
Yep.
This is my rally helmet. So anytime, and I have lots of them. I don't know if you can see back there.
That's so cool.
I have all of them. Like I just, I'm a junkie. But this one I call my rally helmet. Anytime OU needs a big play, I actually put it on. So I wear it through. I've worn it as long as an entire half of a game before.
So where are you today?
I never had a reason to put it on because we were never really in a moment where it needed the rally helmet. So I that's a big one for me. I also, I like to have a Coors Light during the game, but I'm not allowed to have one until they score a touchdown, which I have not been doing this year because there have been games where we have not scored a touchdown, and it's been brutal, including against your horrible t-shirt team there. And that's what hurts the most is, OU and Texas are always sort of, we try to be lockstep with each other. We're trying to, I like that they came into the SEC together. What is so concerning in Sooner Nation is the trajectory of the Longhorns seems to be on a hyper competitive SEC path from a talent standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, from an organizational standpoint. The trajectory is so much higher than us, and that is what bothers us. I mean, we obviously want to do well, but beating Texas is really the only thing we care about. So
Texas is like a super pack team. I mean, they're so set up between, I mean, all the way from their starters to their eighth strings. I mean, they are set. They're not bringing on any talent that's not, I mean, projected to go professional. So, I mean, you've got an amazing quarterback like Quinn Ewers, and then his backup is Arch Manning. I mean, like you just, that's a legacy. That's like very difficult to compete with. And I think that obviously their coaching staff is amazing. They're getting a new $80 million training facility this year. They're investing so much money. They're making so much money off of them. So that's obviously fair. They have come into the SEC, and I don't think the SEC quite loves Texas. Let's just be honest. I don't think they were super welcomed. And like you said, I think OU and Texas came in kind of like a brotherhood in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and I just think they've had very different starts. Um, Needless to say, next year OU definitely could have better coaches, better players, a better offensive line. They could have a better year next year for all we know.
Potentially, but to your point about the depth of your team, when I look at the difference in skill level when I watched the game this year, I realized that OU maybe had 3 or 4 guys on defense that could actually make the defensive team for Texas. We've got some for sure first and second round guys,
Mm-hmm.
but on offense, not a single guy would crack your 3 deep. Not one of them, and not
Mm-hmm.
one of them. And so I don't know what that says about our development standpoint. Do you guys want to say hi to my daughter? Come say hi.
Oh, hi.
Give them the give them the horns down. You can do it.
Horns
There.
no.
Yeah. So this is my daughter Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. Hello.
So yeah, it's concerning. Just from, I don't see us going. Our trajectory is not where it needs to be, and I think Texas is going to leave us in the dust. They have more resources. They've got more money. They've got more talent. They've got better coaches right now for sure. Definitely better players. It's a problem. So I'm not sure what we're supposed to hang our hats on right now. So again, it's all bleak and bad news, but hopefully we can turn it around next year. I always have hope.
I have hope too. I mean, my dad's sister, my aunt, she married into the Sooners. She married a Sooner fan, and then was indoctrinated into being one. So now
There you
she's
go.
a Sooner, and we talk a lot about this at family functions, and there's a lot of horns down and horns up happening. Um, I just think that Texas, like traditionally, has such a good program. Right now, though, they are super. I don't know. In the last 5 years, there's been so much happening with the Longhorns, but I feel like this year in particular, they just put together this like unnatural team in a way. I mean, they are supernatural. They're amazing. Each player is so fantastic on so many levels, and they're all just literally unreal. I don't know. I will say last week's game was not the best for Texas. Obviously, it was their first loss of the season with Georgia. That was really disappointing, and I felt like our offensive line last week was just not doing their job at all. So I'm kind of with you this week on your feelings with your team losing today with your offensive line. That was me feeling last week. Um, but I do think that this next year is going to be pretty solid. I'm excited that they're both in the SEC. I think they both have a clear spot in the SEC. I will say Texas' schedule this year I felt like was lighter than OU's. It didn't seem as competitive as OU's schedule was this year.
Well, it definitely wasn't. I mean, listen, you guys got Vanderbilt, you got Mississippi State, you got Arkansas, you got A&M, you got the bottom portion of the SEC. We got the creatures. Like it was I mean, very glaring from a difficulty standpoint. But OU wouldn't have beaten any of those teams that, I love you. Wouldn't have beaten Vanderbilt, Kentucky, all these teams that are on Texas's schedule. It wouldn't have mattered. We're that ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
I was really hoping that the schedule would flip next year where OU would get sort of, the lighter schedule. But the SEC's already come out and announced that all they're doing is flipping the home and homes. So we play the exact same teams next year. We're just swapping homes. So
Is there a game this season that you're looking forward to watching?
well, I was really looking forward to the OU Alabama game. I thought that would be if we were playing at any good level, it would be a really cool experience. But I, I mean, I don't see us being able to put enough points on the board to beat anybody. I mean, you look at our schedule that we have left. I mean, right now we're 4-4. We only have Maine left that I think we'll be favored in. Every other game, we're going to be double-digit underdogs. So getting even to a bowl game this point is a really tall task. Losing to South Carolina a week ago was pretty much the end of the season for us as far as like getting to a bowl game. We're going to have to upset Missouri or We can't beat Alabama. It's not going to happen. And
You just
obviously,
never know, though. Bama lost to Vandy a few weeks ago. You really don't know with Alabama. I feel like the SEC is so unpredictable. And genuinely, like each team is very skilled in different ways. But I feel like if you catch Bama on a bad week, I think OU could be favored.
um, well, you're wrong. I mean, Vanderbilt.
Positive for your team.
Yeah, Vanderbilt is actually sneaky tough. They've got a great quarterback. I've watched a couple of their games now. They're able to move the ball. They've got good skill position players.
Mhm.
Um, you're never going to convince me. I think there's 135 teams in D1. I believe OU's in the low 130s when it comes to offensive efficiency. It's a staggeringly low percentage of offensive production that OU is doing. Plays over 20 yards, efficiency, points per game. It's laughably awful. So I love that you think OU's got a chance, but we can't beat Alabama if we can't beat South Carolina at home. We can't beat Alabama if we can't put up more than 14 points against Ole Miss. I mean, we just can't score. So we got to
It's
accept what we are.
Today could have been better. I definitely was pulling for you guys, all morning, like hoping that they would come. Honestly, I would have worn a rally helmet for that one, honestly. But
You have a rally helmet at home? Like,
I don't have a rally helmet. I feel like now I need one. I feel like I'm
you
not a
need one.
Texas
It
fan.
works. Listen, I put it on last night for the Dodgers. I'm a big Dodger fan, so I put it on in a moment where the Dodgers needed it. So it works. You just have to. This is my baby. The Sooners have breaking my heart all year long. I wish more than anything in this world that these young men, age 18 to 23, didn't have such an impact on my emotional stability, but they do. I've invested everything that I have in them, and they just are breaking my heart this year. But I love them, and I can't quit them, and I never will. So, but at least the Dodgers are doing well.
Yes. Okay. Well, one last thing about the Sooners, and then I will let you hop off. Favorite pre-game ritual that you have, whether that's a tailgate activity or any sort of pre-game activity that is your favorite that normally works for you.
I really like to get a good workout in before the game. I feel like if I work hard, if I put a good solid effort in, then that somehow puts it into the universe that they will too. Now, I know it has zero effect on them, but it makes me feel better knowing that I feel like I'm working along with them. So,
Oh, that's funny. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the Sooners with me. I really appreciate it. It's not every day that we have this amazing daytime actor coming on to join us to talk about football. Those things just don't normally coincide, but this was such a fun episode.
we're using the term amazing very loosely on the actor standpoint. But anytime you want, if you need a full time Oklahoma Sooner correspondent, you reach out to me because I'm obsessed about them in all of their sports, even their women's softball team. I know all their players. So if you ever need anything OU related, you hit me up and I'll be here for you.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to our review of week 9 in the SEC. Later this week, we'll be previewing week 10. So stick around, like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you later.